The Woman in the Sanctuary, a story of quiet rebirth. She had turned the guest room into her refuge, a small, defiant act of survival. The walls, once sterile and impersonal, now held flickering candles, faded poetry pinned to a corkboard, and a quilt her grandmother had stitched years ago. Downstairs, she existed in limbo. Upstairs, her daughters laughed with their father, their voices drifting through the ceiling like echoes of a life she could no longer touch. For 2 years, she had stayed not out of love, not out of hope, but because the thought of leaving her children, even for a night, made her chest ache like an old wound. Their conversations were sparse, brittle things, words exchanged only when necessity demanded it. She had learned to speak in monotones, to keep her eyes neutral, to fold herself smaller so she wouldn't ignite the quiet war that simmered between them. But in her sanctuary, she allowed herself to remember. She had once been a woman who loved wildly, who danced in the rain, who believed in second chances. That woman felt like a ghost now. The first whisper of change. One evening, while scrolling through an old playlist, a song from her youth came on, one she hadn't heard in a decade. Without thinking, she hummed along. Then, she swayed. Then, for the first time in years, she danced just a few clumsy steps, just for herself, in the dim glow of her salt lamp. It was a tiny thing, but it was hers. The question of another love. Months passed. She met someone not intentionally, not as some grand escape, but slowly, unexpectedly. A friend of a friend, a man who made her feel seen in a way she had forgotten was possible. He didn't fix her. He didn't even know the depths of her story. But when he laughed, she remembered what joy sounded like. And then came the fear. What if leaving for happiness makes me lose my children? What if I'm selfish? What if I fail again? Facing the consequences. The truth about sacrifice. She had already given years to a dead love. Staying wouldn't resurrect it. Her daughters needed a mother who was alive, not one who faded a little more each day. The risk of choosing herself. Yes, their father might weaponize her choices. But she could document every interaction, every effort to co-parent peacefully. Courts favored stability, not punishment. If she left with a plan at home, a livelihood, proof of her devotion, she wouldn't lose them. The scars of judgment. Some would call her reckless, others would whisper. But shame only had power if she let it. She reminded herself, I am not a martyr. I am a woman who deserves love not just in secret, but in daylight. The choice. One morning, she stood at the threshold of her sanctuary, her daughter's drawings in her hands. She inhaled deeply. If not now, she asked herself, when? She didn't have all the answers. But she had something she hadn't felt in years, a flicker of hope, and that was enough to begin. The unwritten future. Would it be easy? No. Would there be guilt, doubt, moments of terror? Of course. But for the first time, she dared to imagine a life where love wasn't something she remembered but something she lived, and that was worth fighting for. Key takeaway in this story is accepting the fact that sometimes the bravest thing a woman can do is not endure but decide she's endured enough.